The Darth Jar Jar theory is the ultimate what if. Supporters believe Jar Jar Binks was originally intended to be a trained Force user and a Sith collaborator hiding in plain sight, acting as a dark mirror to Yoda's bumbling hermit reveal in the original trilogy. Proponents point to the extraneous digital animations of Jar Jar's movements as evidence that he was performing physical feats impossible for a non-Force user. The theory suggests George Lucas planned for a massive reveal in Attack of the Clones, but backed off due to intense fan backlash, effectively breaking the rhyme of the trilogy. If true, Binks was meant to be the true Phantom Menace, a mastermind who helped orchestrate the fall of the Republic while playing the fool. Mace Windu survived his fall in Revenge of the Sith. This theory rests on the classic cinematic rule, no body, no death. While Windu was blasted with Force lightning and hurled from a skyscraper, fans point out that Jedi like Anakin and Obi-Wan regularly survive massive falls using the Force to cushion their landing. Windu was a master of the Shatterpoint ability, allowing him to see critical weaknesses in events which could have helped him find a path to survival. Samuel L. Jackson himself has championed this theory, stating in interviews that he believes Windu is alive and simply lying low. If true, he could return as a scarred, embittered survivor or a hidden guardian watching over the galaxy's remaining Force sensitives. The bigger Luke hypothesis suggests two Lukes exist. This is perhaps the most absurdly detailed theory in the fandom, claiming that there are actually two Luke Skywalkers in the original trilogy, one about 2 to 3 centimeters taller than the other. Lukers use Han Solo as a standardized metric for height, combing through scenes to find frames where Luke appears level with Han's brow versus his chin. There are two main camps, the canon Luke hypothesis, which believes a literal doppelganger exists in universe, and the Hamill hypothesis, which suggests an uncredited lookalike was used for undisclosed reasons. Mark Hamill has even joked about it on social media, claiming he and bigger Luke were only seen together once on The Muppet Show. Palpatine used Padme's life force to save Darth Vader. This theory addresses the medical droid's vague claim that Padme lost the will to live, despite being physically healthy. Fans have noticed that the heartbeat of Padme slows down and stops at the exact moment Anakin's robotic lungs take their first mechanical breath, suggesting a direct energy transfer. Since Palpatine teased the power to cheat death through the story of Darth Plagueis, it's plausible he manipulated the Force across the galaxy to sustain his new apprentice. This would explain why Palpatine knew she was dead before anyone told him. He didn't just feel a shift in the Force, he was the one pulling the trigger. The first Jedi was actually a Skywalker. While Rey grafted herself into the name at the end of the sequel trilogy, this theory suggests the term Skywalker is actually an ancient title for an agent of balance rather than a bloodline. The Prime Jedi mural on Ahch-To depicts the founder as a servant of both light and dark, mirroring the classic yin and yang philosophy. Lucasfilm Story Group members have hinted that the Skywalker is a metaphor for someone born to restore balance, which fits the original Jedi's mantras about calling upon light, dark, and balance true. This reinterprets the entire saga as a recurring cycle where every generation needs its own Skywalker to fight for the fleeting moment of balance between breaths. Obi-Wan was protecting the universe from Luke. While we usually think of Obi-Wan as a protector, this theory suggests he was stationed on Tatooine to act as a failsafe in case Luke turned out like his father. After witnessing Anakin's descent into Darth Vader, Obi-Wan knew the Skywalker bloodline was a potential nuclear option for the dark side. He lived under an alias, watching Luke from a distance and slowly guiding his judgment while keeping him near the site of Vader's greatest trauma. Giving Luke his father's lightsaber wasn't just a gift, it was a heavy responsibility meant to test whether Luke would use that power for justice or for the same destruction Anakin chose. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. The Prime Jedi was a member of the Zepho race. The Jedi Fallen Order game introduced the Zepho, an ancient species of Force sensitives whose culture eventually collapsed due to their pride and neglect of balance. Fans have noted striking physical similarities between the Zepho sages and the alien depicted in the Prime Jedi mural on Ahch-To. Both cultures shared a philosophical focus on balance, and the Zepho sages even led their remnants into the great unknown, possibly founding the First Temple. If the founder was a Zepho, it means the Jedi Order made the exact same mistakes as its predecessor race, creating a tragic loop that Rey is now tasked with breaking. Grogu will lead the next Jedi Order, not Rey. While Rey is currently the last Jedi standing, this theory argues that Grogu's centuries-long lifespan makes him the more logical choice for a long-term Grand Master. Disney and Lucasfilm have turned Baby Yoda into a massive mascot, making it unlikely they will let the character fade into the background. Even though he chose the Mandalorian path, His connection to the Force and his training under Luke suggest he could follow a trajectory similar to Luke's, becoming a master through trial and experience rather than formal schooling. Having a member of Yoda's species head the Order again would provide a powerful symbolic link to the Jedi's most famous era. Colonel Ward is a secret Imperial agent. This theory focuses on the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film, and the casting of Sigourney Weaver as a new Republic officer. Fans have spotted a major inconsistency in her costume. She wears army pips but is shown as an X-Wing pilot, a combination that doesn't make sense for a standard base commander. The theory suggests she is a high-level spy for the Imperial Remnant, similar to Elia Kane, who is quietly undermining Republic operations on the Outer Rim. Sigourney Weaver is too big of a star to play a minor desk jockey, and a plot centered on a betrayal would explain why the film's marketing has been so secretive about its true villain. Anakin actually fulfilled the prophecy by killing the Jedi. This numbers game theory suggests that balance in the Force wasn't about the light side winning, but about equalizing the number of Force users. Before Anakin's turn, there were thousands of Jedi and only 2 Sith, creating a massive numerical imbalance. By executing Order 66, Anakin reduced the numbers until only 2 Jedi, Yoda and Obi-Wan, and 2 Sith, Sidious and Vader, remained. This interpretation paints the Jedi Order as pompous and blind for assuming balance meant their total victory, when the Force actually required a much more literal and violent correction. The Chosen One prophecy is a cycle. Drawing from the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars, this theory suggests the Father was the previous Chosen One who successfully maintained balance between the Son, Dark, and Daughter, Light. Anakin was meant to replace him on Mortis to continue this eternal duty, but his refusal to stay and Palpatine's interference broke the cycle. If Anakin had stayed, the Empire might never have risen, but the galaxy would have remained in a perpetual state of metaphysical stalemate. The theory suggests that the Chosen One isn't a one-time hero, but a recurring role designed to prevent the Force from tearing itself apart in every major era. Han Solo represents the ultimate knight of the saga. Despite having no Force powers, Han's journey follows the tenets of chivalry and noblesse oblige more closely than many Jedi. He begins as a mercenary in a hive of scum and villainy, and evolves into a selfless leader who is willing to step aside and let the woman he loves be with someone else. Lucas used Han to show that bravery and sacrifice are social norms, not just powers reserved for a special class. By the end of the trilogy, Han's Heart of Gold proves that anyone can be a white hat hero if they choose to act for the protection of others. Leia is the goddess archetype who rescued herself. While she is often categorized as a princess in need of rescue, Lucas subverted this trope from her very first scene. In the Belly of the Beast trial inside the Death Star, it is Leia who takes charge of the escape, mocking her rescuers and creating an exit path. She represents the goddess of the hero's journey, but instead of being a passive reward, she is an active combatant and a general. Her role was ahead of its time, popularizing the action-oriented heroine decades before it became a standard trope in mainstream animation. Darth Vader is the true hero of the original trilogy. This theory argues that the entire 3-movie arc is actually the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, rather than just the rise of Luke. While Luke is the protagonist, Vader is the one who undergoes the most radical transformation, from a black hat villain to a savior who sacrifices himself to kill the Emperor. By choosing to save his son, he casts aside his title as a Sith to become a hero without fear once more. Luke's role was merely to provide the faith and sympathy required to reawaken the hero trapped inside the suit. Rota the Hutt will be a key ally in the next movie. The son of Jabba the Hutt, Rota, is confirmed to appear in The Mandalorian and Grogu, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. While his father was a legendary villain, marketing leaks suggest Rota will actually be an ally to Din Djarin. This continues the show's trend of recontextualizing classic creature designs, turning a monstrous bloodline into a sympathetic supporting character. It also provides a narrative bridge back to the Clone Wars, showing that not every Hutt in the galaxy is interested in the criminal empire Jabba left behind. The Jedi Order had to end for balance to survive. Luke's controversial line in the sequels, that it's time for the Jedi to end, is actually based on his realization that the Order's dogma was a barrier to true balance. The prequel Jedi were pompous and argumentative, becoming so focused on the light side that they ignored the darkness growing right in front of them. By clinging to one side, they created the very friction that allowed the Sith to thrive. The theory suggests that true balance requires accepting both facets of the Force, meaning the old, rigid institutions had to be swept away to make room for something new. The Force is a metaphysical judge of chivalry. In this view, the Force isn't just a magic system, but a moral arbiter that rewards those who act selflessly. During the final confrontation between Luke and the Emperor, Palpatine's reliance on his own power is portrayed as his greatest weakness, while Luke's faith in his friends is his greatest strength. The light side and dark side represent the eternal internal struggle between selfless and selfish desires. Therefore, the power of the Force is directly tied to the character's resolve and their willingness to use their strength responsibly for the benefit of the galaxy. Every generation has its own Skywalker. This theory expands on the idea that Skywalker is a title for those who serve as agents of balance in a fleeting reality. Balance is described in ancient texts as the moment between breaths, a temporary state that is constantly under threat. Because of this, the galaxy is in a permanent state of flux, requiring a new Skywalker to emerge every few decades to reset the scales. Anakin, Luke, and Rey are all links in a chain, fulfilling a role that has existed since the Prime Jedi first built the temple on Ahch-To. The Chosen One prophecy was a lie to give the Jedi hope. This cynical theory suggests the prophecy didn't come from a supernatural vision, but was invented by a desperate Jedi leader during a lost war to rally the troops. By creating the idea of a Chosen One, the leadership ensured that the Jedi would never stop fighting, always believing a savior was just around the corner. This explains why Yoda and Mace Windu were so skeptical of the prophecy. They knew its origins were political rather than mystical. In this version, Anakin wasn't a child of destiny, but a boy with a high midichlorian count who was forced into a mold that didn't fit him. Luke and Vader's final battle mirrored the Mortis gods. Fans have pointed out that the physical layout of the throne room fight in Return of the Jedi is a visual echo of the battle between the son and the father on Mortis. A father holding his hand up while his son is poised to deliver a fatal blow with a Force-connected blade is a recurring image in the lore. This suggests that the struggle for balance isn't just a metaphor, but a literal reenactment of the gods' own failures. Luke's decision to toss away his lightsaber was the one thing the son could never do, finally breaking the cycle of violence. Anakin was an evil Force clone, created by Palpatine. If Anakin was indeed implanted in Shmi's womb through the dark side, this theory argues he was never meant to be a hero. He was a freak of nature designed by Sidious to be the perfect vessel for Sith power, effectively making him a dark side experiment rather than a child of the Force. This adds a horrific layer to their relationship, as Palpatine wasn't just a mentor, he was a biological architect who had been manipulating Anakin's very DNA since before his birth. This makes Anakin's eventual turn back to the light the ultimate act of defiance against his own creator.